Story 1. My old boss and best friend were having lunch with a client, and the subject of kids came up because the client was expecting. My boss said, "If you want to know how to be a good parent, look at him. He's the best father I've ever known." Story 2. 14 years ago, a man sitting next to me on an airplane told me that I was the best conversationalist he had ever met. He pointed to his headphones and said that he never talks to anyone on flights, but talked to me the whole time because I was so interesting to talk to. He gave me his business card and said he would give me a sales job right now. It was such a powerful compliment that it changed the trajectory of my life and made me a much more confident person. Thanks, Monty, wherever you are now. Story 3. A woman at the bar walked up to me and started talking, acting like she knew me. Having all women cousins, I knew to play along. When the creep left, she said, "You gave an aura that felt safe." Since then, I've strived to be the safe person someone can come up to. Best compliment I've ever been given, especially now that I'm a girl dad. Story 4. Back in elementary school, a boy that I had a crush on needed to borrow some of my colored pencils. I was sitting by the window and the sun was hitting my face. When I looked at him to give him the pencil, he stopped what he was saying and said that my eyes looked like snowflakes in the sun. To this day, my eyes are my favorite part of myself and I would never change anything about them. Unfortunately, I found out recently that he is now in prison for attempted murder of his child's mother. Story 5. When I was in labor after my epidural, my heart rate dropped, and the nurse team had to flip me onto all fours. One of the nurses told me I had the nicest butthole she had ever seen. I will definitely never forget it. Story 6. She told me I was a man written by a woman. Still not sure if it was a blessing or a curse. I didn't pick up on the hint. Edit. Thank you all for the kind words in the replies. I'm gonna remember this for a while, I feel. Story 7. You smell like a handsome forest. Probably not the kindest compliment I've received, but certainly the most memorable. The girl was rather intoxicated, and it made me laugh. Story 8. My fiancée Kayla, a few weeks before I lost her in a car accident, was watching me while I was doing something around our small apartment. She just kept smiling at me, and I asked her, "What are you smiling at, baby?" She said so sweetly, You're so beautiful." I melted. As a man, I had never received such a wonderful compliment. My face turned bright red. She always made me smile. Story 9. I appreciate you. Stepdaughter gave me that one after a lengthy chat about some stuff and a much-needed hug afterwards. Doesn't take much, but it sticks with you. Story 10. Someone nominated me for our local Best of the Best awards for my profession. The caption that went with it said, "The kindest person I know." No clue who it was. Story 11. Your patience is amazing. Things that would drive me into a rage just roll off your back. It's bittersweet because I got yelled at so often, I didn't even notice anymore. Story 12. My best friend got married a few months ago. I traveled to her city and stayed at her house for a week or so to help out and support her. Her sister has a 9-year-old son, and we spent some time together. It was my first time meeting them. After I got home from the wedding, my friend told me that the little boy had said, "She breathed life into the place." I just can't forget what he said. Story 13. I was 20 years old and working the ticket counter at the Amtrak station. I was chatting with a customer from Germany who was traveling solo around the United States. It seemed like a friendly and standard conversation. I helped her with a smile, and she thanked me and walked away. 20 minutes later, she came back to my counter and handed me a small box of chocolate-covered blueberries and said, "Please tell your mother she did a wonderful job raising you," and headed off to her gate. She didn't know that I had lost my mother to a drug overdose a couple of months prior and was absolutely devastated on the inside. That single compliment and interaction has stuck with me for 22 years, and I still think about that moment when I'm in a dark place. Wherever you are, friendly German tourist, thank you for giving me the strength to get through all those years ago. Story 14. I've told this story like 10 times on Reddit already. I was having beers on a restaurant patio with friends, and this woman in her 60s walked by with her takeout in hand. She stopped as she passed me, looked me directly in the eyes, and said very loudly, "Excuse me, you're very handsome." I said thank you with a big grin on my face. This compliment was quite complimentary in the way it completed me. Story 15. Remember that time I was mean to your daughter, and you sat me down and scared the living daylights out of me? Thank you for that. That was the wake-up call I needed. I was messed up from my dad dying and hanging out with the wrong people, and if you had not yelled at me like that, I would probably have ended up in prison. Story 16. My ex's mom said, "I have seen you with long hair, a short bob, a long bob, and now a pixie, and you look absolutely beautiful with any hairstyle you choose." I will never forget this compliment. I hated my ex, but her mom was such a sweetheart. Story 17. My wife said that she tells her coworkers that I'm rough when they ask what I'm like. I was like, "What do you mean, rough?" She said, "Like good for an apocalypse, like Joel from The Last of Us." That was the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. Story 18. That it took me 41 years to find you, and I'm never letting go of you. That's what my partner said to me the day we decided that we were more than friends. And since then our lives are just full of love and mutual respect. Story 19. A taxi driver in Russia told me I smelled nice as I was getting out of his cab. He wasn't hitting on me, and my own husband hadn't given me a personal compliment in 2 years. It was sad, but I thought about that compliment for months. Look at me. I'm still writing about it 10 years later. That compliment was the tiny seed of me being able to begin to think of myself as an attractive person again. 10 years, 1 divorce, a huge glow-up in my confidence, and an astonishing second marriage to a man who thinks I'm hot and gorgeous and all the things later. I still remember that a Russian taxi driver liked my perfume and threw a despairing woman a tiny lifeline that day. Story 20. Many years ago, I had a job as a trainee deck officer in the Merchant Navy. My first onboard ship assignment was an unmitigated disaster. I joined the ship carrying a nasty virus, and as it turns out, I get violently seasick. Adding to the fact, I often locked horns with the chief mate and captain. When the time came to end my stint on that ship, I thought everyone would be glad to see the back of me. It was during my final time at my mooring station while we tied up that the bosun and the pumpman took me aside and said they thought I'd really make a good officer and they hoped I'd return to that ship after my vacation. Coming from those two senior deckhands who had probably seen and done it all really meant a lot. Story 21. Last week at my older son's sporting event, my younger son, who is 11, stayed behind, held the door, and exchanged pleasantries with 3 families going to the same event. Later in the day, one of the fathers saw him sitting with me and came up to talk to my son, complimenting his kindness and also commending me for raising such a kind and respectful son in a world where kindness seems to be fleeting. I know my kid is a good kid, but hearing it from complete strangers always feels great. Story 22. At my first job ever, I was with my coworker in the shop, and a girl came to us and asked if we could see her bra under her shirt. We were confused but told her no. She looked great. She raised her head and shouted super enthusiastically, "You girls are so gorgeous." She thanked us, bought a drink, and left. She was beautiful and sounded so very sincere. I still think about it 7 years later. Story 23. Your life is valuable, and I truly believe that one day you will return to the life you once knew and be able to make a positive impact on your community. My psychiatrist, she is no longer with us. I am forever thankful. Story 24. Some woman the other day complimented my whole outfit and jewelry, and then said I was just so put together. No one has ever said that to me, and it was just the sweetest compliment I've heard in a while. Story 25. I was 16 years old working at 7-Eleven. During the summer, I was working some hours one morning, and the older retired lady who worked 5 in the morning to 10 in the morning through the week was there with me. Out of the blue, she says to me, "You know, I think you're really nice." Being a scrawny 16-year-old with low self-esteem and not used to hearing such things, this totally startled me. To this day, I feel like this was the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. Story 26. My dad broke his hip, and my siblings insisted that I come and help look after him for a week. So I did. By the time I got there, he was over the worst, and I took him home from the hospital. I drove him around, made his meals, took him places, and we had a good time together, enjoying that time. Not long before I left, he said, "If your mom had been here, she would be very proud of you," which was his way of saying he was very proud of me too. Miss you, Dad. The other day, my child and I were talking about my ex, their mom, who is a miserable narcissist and made our lives difficult for years. And they said, well, at least I had one parent who showed me what unconditional love was. It absolutely melted me. Story 27. She's so fancy. A kid whispered this excitedly to her mother as I walked past them. I had been feeling very insecure and had been working on building up my confidence by wearing sophisticated, stylish, but casual clothing. I can't be a mess if I'm well put together, right? See, I'm a functional adult. Hearing her odd tone was so validating. Like, yes, random kid, I am a fancy lady. Story 28. Was wearing a pink bucket hat, red sweatshirt, baggy jeans, large trainers, and a crossbody bag. A woman told me I was so cute and looked like Paddington Bear. Story 29. Your eyes are like chocolate wrapped in gold. Hands down the most original compliment I've ever gotten about my eyes. People always tell me I have nice eyes, but to hear it said like that really hit me. Story 30. I saw some school kids playing in the street, and I knew one of them, so I waved at them and said hello. Then, as I was walking off, I heard one of the small girls whisper, "Wow, she's so pretty." Story 31. Not exactly a compliment, but my daughter's lifetime best friend forever called me recently to come out. I was so touched that she sought me out for that purpose and surprised that she was so nervous to tell me. She has my support 100,000%, and I'm so proud of her. Story 32. At work, I helped an old man sort out the items he wanted to buy. After the sale concluded, he said to me, "You are a good man." I was feeling very depressed at the time, so I really needed that. Story 33. I don't know what my sister and I were talking about, but I brought up the 7 minutes after death thing, and she told me I would be most of her 7 minutes. For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, after you die, your brain replays the best memories of your life for 7 minutes before it completely shuts off. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it means. Story 34. Sophomore year of high school in Algebra 2 class, I raised my hand and walked the class through how to solve a problem. After I was done, the teacher said, I hope one day you get a job where someone pays you to think. Story 35. A gorgeous black lady complimented but when I was in Vegas. I had worked hard for that, but physical training multiple times a week for a year. This is one of the best compliments that I have ever received, and I love that she did it. More women need to give each other compliments. Story 36. I've put on the wrong kind of weight over the years, but I used to be into weightlifting in my youth. I was chatting with an obvious bodybuilder at a recent wedding, and he said, "You look like you're really strong." That was awesome. Story 37. I am a chess player, and my style is very positional. I try to emulate the styles of players like Karpov and Petrosian, who have been known for very solid defensive play. Once, I was playing in a club tournament, and a strong player was watching my game. After I won, he said, "You played like Petrosian." That made me very happy. Story 38. I was raking leaves at my girlfriend's house, and her 7-year-old daughter started jumping into the piles. My girlfriend scolded her for making me have to rake some of them back up. I said, "It's okay. Let her be a kid." Later, my girlfriend said, "Thank you for reminding me that I need to let my daughter be a kid." Story 39. A guy I worked with right out of high school said he heard a girl laugh on a plane and thought it was me, and when he was able to get up during the flight, he walked down the aisle to check. Obviously, it wasn't me. He said he loved my laugh and could have sworn he heard me. Story 40. Long story short, my family disagreed with my then fiancée about something, and I told my mom, "I don't know if she's doing the right thing. I don't know what the right thing is, but I know she's doing it for the right reasons, and I'm going to stand behind her." My mom responded, "You're going to be a good husband." Story 41. I work a lot of customer service jobs, and one day, A random lady came up to me and said she recognized me from one of my jobs and that I brightened her and her friends' days. She said they talked about me for days, mentioning how kind I was. It was the biggest, most meaningful comment I'll ever hear. Story 42. For Christmas, my stepchildren wrote on the Christmas card they gave me, "Thanks for being our father figure for the last 10 years. Their mom and I are in the middle of a divorce. It really hit home. Story 43. I just found out from doing a DNA test that I have a half-brother, and he and I have been talking almost every day. He told me that I am really sweet, down to earth, and easy to talk to. That's my new big brother, and it made my day. His wife was so happy that he found the family he never knew he had. Warm fuzzies all around." Story 44. A couple of years ago, I was helping my little cousin troubleshoot his game. After everything was sorted, he suddenly said, "When I'm older, I hope to be just like you." Something I often remember. Story 45. My coworker's 4-year-old said during an online meeting to me, "You have a nice voice?" And I stopped what I was talking about, which was sort of important, and I just said thank you. Then he said in a high-pitched voice, "You're welcome." We paused for a little bit because he wanted to know more about his mom, so I tried my best to make her sound like a cool mom, which was pretty easy. She ended up telling him he should go hang out with her other kids so we could get back to working. Then he asked for a hug, they hugged, and we got back to the meeting. That kid made my day.